Zokuba ngihlabelelo 116 inkosi kusiphama bebanga. Uyabizwa Nkosi Solomon. njengoba bezwakala manje
the last one just one.
njengoba ngike ngasho ngesonto ledlule lesihlabelelo saqanjwa umprofeti izashembe ukuthula kube kuye.
As I said last week, that this hymn is from the prophet Isaiah, and the peace be upon him.
Ngathi last week igama elithi Phakameni suke lingachazi kuphela umuzi osephakameni eNanda, kodwa liye lichaze uNazaretha.
I also said that the name Ekpagamen does not necessarily mean the city that is located at Enanda, but also refers to the Nazareth faith.
Nakulesihlabelelo uShembe wayekhuluma ngoNazaretha.
In this hymn also, the prophet was referring to the Nazareth faith.
Ukuthi inkosi uSolomoni ayibeli iNazaretha.
That the King Solomon becomes a Nazarene.
Uma wenza into usuke sikhona isizathu owenza ngaso leyo nto, kanti futhi into eyenzayo iba nawo umphumela.
Whenever you do something, there is always a reason behind that, and such doing always has an outcome.
Kungenzeka ukuthi wenze into isizathu ungasazi, noma mhlambe wenze into isizathu sazi, kodwa umphumela ungaba yiyo lento obucabanga ukuthi izoba yona.
There is always a possibility of doing something whilst knowing the outcome or not knowing the outcome. There's always a possibility of doing something and not knowing the reason or knowing the reason, but the outcome can sometimes not be up to your expectations.
Ngaphambili ngangiyimanji yesifunda ngijwayele ukulamula izimpi zamakhosi noma izimpi zezizwe.
I was once a district magistrate, and I would have to seize wars between different kingdoms.
Ngangiye ngithi ma ngilamula izimpi bese ngibabiza laba bantu ngibuza izizathu zokuthi lezi zimpi zisuke kanjani noma le mpi isuke kanjani.
Whenever I tried to stop the wars between them, I would ask them what is the basis of them fighting, or how did they come about to fight.
Ziningi ke izizathu ababenginika zona ngoba kwakuhlale njalo kuba nezimpi bese benginikeza izizathu ezahlukene.
There were many reasons that they would give all the time.
Kodwa ngiyakhumbula ukuthi kwenye impi ngathi mangibuza ukuthi balelwane basebethi omunye uthe kusesibayeni wagiya wayesethela inyama yabo ngomqhuba.
I remember that once when I asked them what is the reason for them fighting, they said that one of them was in a crowd dancing, and he actually spilled cow dung on their meat. And that was the starting point of the fight. This fight eventually became a fight amongst all the people of that land, and they went as far as shooting each other,
Kwashiswa imizi,
and houses were burnt down.
amakhosikazi ney'ngane kulala ey'ntabeni.
Wives and children would have to sleep in the mountains,
Kwavalwa iy'kole.
and schools had to shut down.
Kodwa umsuka noma isizathu salokho kwawukube ukugiya komuntu oyedwa esibayeni wathela inyama yalaba ababedla inyama ngomqhuba.
But the starting point of all that was just because one person was dancing in the kraal and spilled a cow dung on their meat.
Kwekunye ukulwa okwakwenzeka ngathi mangibuza ukuthi lokhu kulwa kuqale kanjani, bangitshela ukuthi uNtombi ibibangwa ngabafana ababili kodwa kwagcina kunempi yezigodi.
Once I also asked in another war that went on, and they narrated that it was because of two boys were fighting for a maiden, and that fight eventually became a fight of the people of that particular land.
Kwenye indawo ngathi mangibuza ukuthi lokhu kulwa kusuke kanjani, bangitshela ukuthi omunye wabo uye kwelinye iqembu wayoshaya khona ingoma, wasekugcina sekugxatshana sekusuka impi.
And I also asked a particular group, and they narrated that one of them went to dance on for the other group, and then that was the starting point of that fight.
Kuyo yonke lempi kwakuba yimpi egcina sekudutshulwana ngeyibhamu sekufa abantu.
In all these wars, they'd end up shooting each other and people would die.
Kushiswe imizi, kuvalwe iy'kole.
And houses were burnt down and schools were shut.
Kodwa yonke into isuke ngengoma ngokusina.
But the starting point of all of this was their traditional songs and dances.
Kukhona ke into thina sizwe samaZulu esidume ngayo udlame noma i-violence.
There is something that we are known for as the nation of the Zulu people, which is violence,
Noma ukuthanda ukulwa.
or the love to fight.
Zonke izizwe ngisho ezimnyama ziyazi ukuthi abantu amaZulu abantu abathanda ukulwa, bayesatshwa ngokwesatsha.
Even other African nations know that the Zulu people are people who love to fight and they are feared.
Ngake ngezwa ne-Minister of Police ikhala ngalokho ukuthi ngisho emgodini iyako Gauteng noma Kimberley uyothola ukuthi makuqhamuka izimpi ngezamaZulu.
I once heard the Minister of the Police having an outcry that whether you go to Johannesburg or any other place, if there are wars, it usually starts from the nations of the Zulu people.
Ngake ngaba yimantshi eKimberley. Ngathi mangiyimantshi lapho ngahlangana nokukhuluma okuyisimangaliso kwezizwe zabaTswana ngamaZulu ukuthi amaZulu nje aziwa njengeyilwane.
When I was a magistrate in Kimberley, I was surprised to find out from the Tswana people that they know the Zulu people to be a people who like to fight.
Isikhathi esiningi ngiye ngiyibuza ukuthi ngabe indlela esidalwe ngayo ukuthi sithande ukulwa noma mhlawumbe kukhona into esingayazi eyenza ukuthi njalo sithande ukulwa sibulala abantu.
Many a times I ask myself, is that the way we were created, to love to fight and kill other people?
Angikholwa ukuthi indlela esidalwe ngayo kunezinye izizwe ukuthi sibe abantu abathanda ukulwa.
I do not believe that that is the way we were created, to be different from other nations and have the love to fight.
Kodwa kukhona into abantu abangayazi ukuthi uma ufa wenza into ethize uqhubeka nokuyenza noma usumoya.
But there is something that people do not know, that whatever you like to do whilst you are in this world, you also carry on doing that even when you are a spirit.
Noma ngabe ubumthakathi uyawuthi mawufa uqhubeke nokuthakatha.
If you were a witch, you go on being a witch.
Noma ubumdlwenguli uma ufa uyaqhubeka nokudlwengula.
And if you're a rapist, you go on raping people.
Noma ufe ulwa noma empini uthi noma usufile uqhubeke nokulwa.
And if you die fighting or in a war, you go on to fight even in the spiritual realm.
Noma wenzani uyaqhubeka nokuthi uyenze leyo nto noma usufile.
Whatever it is that you do, you go on to do that even when you are dead.
Noma ngabe leyo nto inhle noma ngabe imbi kodwa uyaqhubeka nokuyenza.
Whether it is something good or bad, you still carry on to do it.
Kodwa uma wenza leyo nto awuyenzi nje kuphela umoya kodwa uyaye ubuyele kubantu basenyameni uyenze ngabo.
And if you carry on doing that, you do not just do it as a spirit, but you go on to use people who are in flesh, people who are still alive, and they also do that.
Uma umthakathi ungena kumuntu ophilayo bese naye ethakatha.
If you were a witch, you go on to use somebody, and they will be seen to also perform witchcraft.
Uma ubuyisilwi ungena komunye umuntu ophilayo eqhubeke naye elwe noma ebulala abantu uma wayembulala.
If you're a person who liked fighting, you also go on to use a person who is alive, and then they are also seen to fight and kill people.
Imimoya nje yabantu abafile isebenza kanjalo.
That is how the spirits of the dead function.
Sike sikhulume ngendaba yendoda ihlanya ngokuthi yakhe izibhamu.
We always narrate a story about a man who was insane, and in his insanity he would forever be building guns.
Mayesenza khilile izibhamu bese ehambe edubula ngaso kusuka lapha kuze kuyofika eThekwini.
And when he had these guns, he would just shoot randomly from here to Durban. He'd just be shooting.
Wayenejazi owayengahlukani nalo noma elele engahlukani naleli jazi.
He had a coat which he did not separate with, whether he was asleep or not.
Wahlanya iminyaka cishe eza ku-20 noma ngaphezulu.
He was insane for 20 years or more than that.
Ingane zakhe ezincane zaze zakhula uyise ewuhlala.
His youngest children grew into adults, and he was still insane.
Zahluleka zonke izinyanga ukumelapha lo muntu.
There was no traditional healer who could heal.
Wayesegcina sethathwa esiwa kuShembe ubaba ilanga.
And he was taken to Shembe II.
Ubaba ilanga wambuka wayesethi kumlandeli yajazi lokufakile.
Shembe II looked at him intensely, and he eventually said that take off him the coat that he is wearing.
Bathi akavumi ukuba likhunyelwe leli jazi.
And they said that he does not want this coat to be.
Wathi hambani nelikhumulo.
And he persisted and said they must take it off him.
Bathi belikhumula leli jazi lo muntu wavele waphila.
And when they had taken the coat off him, he became sane.
Wase uyachaza ubaba ukuthi lento ebimhlanyisa ilomoya wesosha ngoba kwakuyijazi lesosha lezi elafa lifake leli jazi.
Shembe II went on to explain that he was insane because of a spirit that dwelt in him, which is a spirit of a soldier who died wearing the same coat.
Wathi malumntu elithola leli jazi elithenga kanti lo moya waleli sosha uhleli kuwo.
When this person bought this coat, the coat was with the spirit of that soldier,
Wase uyamhlanyisa.
and that made him insane.
Umoya ke uma uhlala kumuntu umenza izinto eziningi.
When a spirit is dwelling, it makes that person do many things.
Omunye ungakuhlanyisa.
Some become insane,
Omunye ukwenze lokhu nalokhu.
and other different things.
Okunye ungaboni wena ukuthi lento oyiyona noma oyicharacter yakho akusiyona icharacter yakho kodwa umoya ohleli kuwo.
And in some instances, you are not aware that the character that you think is yours is not actually you, but it is the spirit that dwells in you.
Ngelinye ilanga ingilosi yasiluleka ngendaba yabantu abayebethenge inwele zezinye izizwe bese beyifaka kubo behlobe ngazo.
One particular day, the angel advised us against people who buy hair that belong to other races, and they use those hair as wigs.
Kwesinye isikhathi ungathi uthenga lezi inwele kanti uthenga inwele zomuntu osewafa.
Sometimes you might think that you are just buying hair, but you are buying of a person who is deceased.
Wena uhlobe ngalezi inwele ngenkathi uhloba ngalezi inwele nalomuntu osewafa uhloba ngazo. Uhloba ngawo.
And you beautify yourself using this hair, and then the spirit uses you to beautify itself.
Kwesinye isikhathi lo muntu ohlobe ngaye waye umuntu nje odayisa umzimba noma ongayiphethe kahle noma ngandlela.
It is also possible at times that the hair of this hair belongs to a person who was a harlot.
Nawe mayesehleli kuwe lo muntu uzoyibona usuthanda amadoda.
And then you'll also see yourself becoming a harlot.
Usolala na wonke lamadoda kanti akulali wena nalamadoda kulala lo muntu lona ofake inwele zakhe.
And then you go on to sleep around with men, but it is not necessarily you, but it is the spirit which dwells in you.
Mhlawumbe lo muntu lona wayithakatha nawe uzwa sekufikela ukuthi thakatha kanti ilomoya walo muntu.
Or this person was a witch, and it comes to your spirit that you should also perform witchcraft, and it will not be you, but the spirit that dwells in you.
So ayikho into eyingozi njengomoya womuntu ozohlala kuwe ngoba wena ugcina wenza lento wona oyiyona.
So there is nothing more dangerous to have a spirit dwelling in you, because you end up doing what the spirit wants.
Kulesikhathi esiphambili bekunomfana obedlwengula abantu ngapha South Coast bese ethi mase wadlwengula abantu besifazane bese babulala.
There was once a boy who would rape people in the South Coast, and after raping them, he would go on to kill them.
Uthe mase boshiwe wayeseyayibulala.
And when he was imprisoned, he killed himself.
Kungenzeka ukuthi lo mfana lona kwakunomoya womuntu owafa wahlala kuye owaye emdlwenguli wayesebenza naye edlwengule enza yonke leyo.
There is a possibility that in him dwelt a spirit which was a rapist and made him to go around raping.
naye lapho khona manje umoya wakhe ufuna omunye umuntu la emhlabeni ozohlala kuye eqhubeke nokudlengula ebulala abantu.
And wherever his spirit is, it is seeking people to use and dwell in so that they may also continue raping people.
Yileyo nto ke eyingozi ngomoya abantu abangayazi.
That is the central danger about spirits which people do not understand.
Nalaba abantu abasuke belwa begcine sekunezimpi becabanga ukuthi baxatshaniswe ukugiya komuntu, kodwa kusuke kukhona umoya ngemuva odalele yona.
And that is the case amongst people who end up fighting, thinking that it stems from just a traditional dance, but there is always a spirit behind that.
Abantu bakwaZulu ngokwemvelo bajwayele ukuba nezimpi. Izimpi kuyo zinto emidlalo.
Amongst the people of Zulu, there are always wars and they take it lightly as play.
Kodwa lezo zinto kayiqali manje iqala emandulo ngenkathi kwakhiwa isizwe sakwaZulu.
But those wars are not just wars of today, but they are historical wars which come during the time that the Zulu nation was created.
Ngendlela amakhosi akwaZulu aye elwa ngayo, abantu bakwaZulu baze bathatha ngokuthi ukulwa ubulale umuntu kuyindlela yokuphila.
The Zulu kings fought in such a way that their people started thinking that fighting and killing people is the way of life.
Umbuzo ke uthi siqeda kanjani lokho, sikuvika kanjani lokho ukuthi singenwe imimoya abantu abasebafa bezohlala kithi besenzise izinto ezimbi.
The question therefore is, how do we shy away from it, or how do we stop that, to have spirits of dead people dwelling in us, and those spirits then make us do evil deeds?
Kujwayelekile ukuthi uzwe amakhosi akwaZulu ethi uShembe wathunyelwa emakhosini, nendlunkulu isho njalo ukuthi uShembe wathunyelwa endlunkulu.
It is a usual occurrence that you find the Zulu chiefs saying that Shembe was sent to the kings of KwaZulu, and that is the same notion that you find in the royal family.
Kodwa bengabe besachaza ukuthi uShembe wathunyelwa kwaZulu ukuthi ezokwenza.
But they do not go on to explain what he was sent to do in KwaZulu.
Kodwa kulesi sihlabelele kade sihlabelela uthi uShembe uyabizwa Nkosi Solomoni, udumo lukaJehova lusephakameni.
But in the hymn that we sang, it says that you are called, O King Solomon, the glory of the Lord is at Ekparame.
Ngo-1931 ubaba mkhulu wake wachaza ukuthi umprofeti uhlala emkhathini.
In 1931, the prophet explained that the spirit of the prophet dwells in the firmament.
Uthi-ke ubaba mkhulu uma umprofeti ehlala emkhathini ulindela isizwe esonile bese uNkulunkulu emthumela kuso.
And he awaits a nation that has transgressed, so that God may send him to that nation.
Uthi-ke umprofeti uNkulunkulu uyayikhethe kuleso sizwe intombi nensizwa abanenhliziyo ehlanzekileyo bese bahlanganisa ngothando.
The prophet said that then God will go on to choose a maiden and a young man who is pure of heart, and then brings them together with love.
bothi masebeganene bese umprofeti owumoya wehlela kulowo wesifazane ehlale kuye.
And when they have married, then the spirit of the prophet descends upon the woman and dwells in the woman.
Bese umntwana ezalwa njengabo bonke abantwana, ekhule njengabo bonke abantwana, engazilutho ukuthi umprofeti womkhathi.
And then the child will be born like any other ordinary child, not being aware that they are a prophet.
Uyoze azi uma uNkulunkulu esefuna ukusebenza ngayo ukuthi wena umprofeti womkhathi.
Until such a time that God wants to use him, and he will then be aware that he is a spiritual prophet.
Uthi-ke umprofeti izashembe ukuthola kube kuye ngiwulo mprofeti.
The prophet Isaiah, peace be upon him, said, I am that prophet.
Ngazalwa ngakhula njengabo bonke abantu ngingazilutho ukuthi ngingumprofeti wasezulwini.
I was born and I grew like everybody else, not knowing that I am a prophet from heaven.
uNkulunkulu wayesengimemela entabeni yasenhlangakazi.
And God then invited me to Mount Inkinga.
Uthi-ke umprofeti kusentabeni yasenhlangakazi lapho engaqala ukwazi khona ukuthi ngingumprofeti womkhathi.
He said that it is at Mount Inkinga that he was made aware that he is a prophet of the firmament.
Uthi ngaqala lapho ukwazi ukuthi sekungokwehlanu ngifika ezizweni ezahlukene.
And he said that it is then that I was made aware that it is the 5th time that I came to different nations.
Kodwa-ke angikhulumi ngalokho.
But that is not what I'm speaking about.
Ngikhuluma ngokuthi uthi ushembe umprofeti uyaye ethunyelwe esizweni esonile.
I am narrating that the prophet said that a prophet is always sent to a nation that has transgressed.
Ushembe akafihlanga ukuthi isizwe sakwaZulu sonile kuJehova.
The prophet Isaiah did not hide that the nation of KwaZulu is a nation that has sinned before the Lord.
Wayekusho ekhuluma ekusho nasemthandazweni wesabatha kukhona lokho.
He would say that when he was speaking, and it is also in the Sabbath liturgy.
Akafihlanga ukuthi abantu abona kuJehova amakhosi ethu.
He did not make it a secret that the people who sinned before Yahweh are our kings.
Akafihlanga ukuthi thina sithwele izono zabo.
And he did not make it a secret that upon us is their transgression.
Ngiyajabula ukuthi ngesinye isikhathi ngezwa ingonyama ikhuluma ifakaza ukuthi thina sisizukulwane sabantwana bakwaIsrael.
I'm happy to know that I heard the Zulu king saying that we are the children of Israel.
Ngamanye amazwi ingonyama nendlunkulu iyazi ukuthi isizwe samaZulu sidabuka esizweni sakwaIsrael.
So in other words, the king and the royal family are aware that the Zulu people are a people of Israel.
Ingonyama yazi yakhuluma ngamasiko ethu ukuthi ayafana namasiko aseBhayibhelini kwi-Old Testament.
He spoke about our customs and said that they are the same as those that are found in the Old Testament.
Uma ingonyama yazi ukuthi sisizwe sakwaIsrael, lokho kuchaza ukuthi ingonyama iyazi ukuthi sisizwe esikhethiwe esikhethwe uNkulunkulu.
If the king knows that we are the nation of Israel, then he is also aware that we are a chosen nation that has been chosen by God.
Sengikuchaze kaningi ukuthi ngenkathi sinqotshwa ama-Roma ngo-70 AD sabalekela eWest Africa. Lapha eWest Africa kukhona indawo okuthiwa iNegroland.
I have explained many a times that when we were conquered by the Romans, we ran to West Africa, and in West Africa there is a place that is known as Negro Land.
Kunemap ecacisa ngokusobala ukuthi kule Negro Land kunenzalo kaJacob noma kaNaftali namanye amadodana kaJacob.
There is a map that clearly puts it that in that land there is the progeny of Jacob and Naphtali.
Bese kwakhona indawo enkulu ebizwa kuthiwa i-Kingdom of Judah.
And there is a large piece of land which is known as the Kingdom of Judah.
Ngakho ke asingabazi ukuthi ngenkathi amaJuda ehlaselwa eGaza Strip abalekela eAfrica.
We therefore do not doubt that when the Jews were attacked, they ran to or escaped to Gaza Strip.
Ngenkathi ehlaselwa esukela kwiGaza Strip lapha ekhona abalekela eWest Africa.
When they were attacked whilst at Gaza Strip, they ran or escaped to West Africa.
Lapha eWest Africa siyazi ukuthi ama-Negro adayiswa ezizweni zonke.
And we are aware that the Negroes they were selling them to all the other nations.
Siyazi ukuthi amanye amaJuda anqamula iSahara Desert aze azofika lapha eSouth Africa.
We also know that some other Judeans crossed the Sahara Desert and came to South Africa.
Ngakho ke ingonyama ayenzi iphutha mayithi siyinzalo yakwa-Israel.
So the Zulu king is not wrong when he says that we are the children of Israel.
Nokuthi siyinzalo kaJuda.
And that we are the progeny of Judah.
Inzalo kaJuda kwakuyinzalo yobukhosi.
The children of Judah were a children of kingship.
Lokhu ukuthi ingonyama akusiyona into yakwaZulu, into esuka kudala ngenkathi uJacob ebusisa abantwana bakhe.
When this notion that we are a king,
no, lokhu ukuthi ingonyama noma inkosi yethu ingonyama akusiyona into entsha yasuka kwaIsrael.
the notion that our king is the king of lions is not something new.
Is a lion.
Is a lion. It's not something new, but it is something that comes from Israel.
Kwasho uJacob kumntanakho uJuda ukuthi uyibhubesi.
It is Jacob that said that to his child Judah, that you are a lion.
Okungenzeka ukuthi lesi sizwe sakwaJuda noma lesi sizwe samaZulu kwabuye futhi kwakhandeka isizwe sakwaJuda.
It is possible that amongst the Zulu nation was created again the nation of Judah.
Njengoba bathi mabefika eWest Africa basebeqala futhi kuba khona umbuso wakwaJuda.
Just like how when they arrived in West Africa, they arose the king of Judah again.
Njengoba kubo bonke abantwana bakaJacob isizwe sakwaJuda isona esagcinayo ukuba sibe nobukhosi.
Just like in all the children of Jacob, it is the house of Judah that had the kingship last.
Ngachaza ukuthi kwihlabelelo 74 umprofeti washo ukuthi uyinzalo kaJuda.
I explained that in the 74th hymn, the prophet explained that he is a progeny of Judah.
Sengike ngakusho ukuthi nami ingilosi yasho kimi ukuthi ngiyinzalo yakwaJuda, and ingilosi ayikwazi ukuqamba amanga ngoba yayikhona.
And I've also said that the angel said, I'm also the progeny of Judah, and the angel cannot lie because she was there.
Kodwa kukhona into eyodwa esiyikhohlwayo, zame ukuba siphakamise ubukhosi kodwa singasiphakamisi izono zethu.
But there is one thing that we always forget. We take pride and lift our kingship, but never mention our transgressions and sins.
Kulula ukuthi sithi sinzalo noma sisizwe sakwa-Israel, sisizukulwane sakwa-Israel, kodwa bese sikhohlwa ukuthi isizukulwane ukuthi u-Israyeli wayephila ngaphansi komthetho kaJehova.
It is easy for us to say that we are the children of Israel, but forget that Israel lived under the laws of God.
Nengonyama kwakulula ukuthi ikusho lokho, kodwa yakhohlwa ukuthi laba bantu ethi siyinzalo yabo babephila ngaphansi komthetho kaJehova.
It was easy for the king to also mention that, but he forgot to mention that our forefathers were governed by the laws of God.
Ngiye ngizibuzele mina ukuthi uma ingonyama nendlunkulu yazi ukuthi siyinzalo kaIsrayeli, pho endlunkulu agcina ngani isabatha?
So I always ask myself that if the king and the royal family know that we are the children of Israel, why do they not observe the Shabbat?
Ngabe abazi noma befunda iBhayibheli ukuthi abantwana bakwa-Israyeli uJehova wathi abagcina isabatha?
Do they not know, and are they not aware even when they read the Bible that God, Yahweh, said that the children of Israel must observe the Shabbat?
Bayazi.
They are aware.
Kodwa inkinga yabo ukuthi bathatha inkolo yobuKristu.
But their problem is that they took upon them the Christian religion,
Bengayazi umlando wenkolo yobuKristu.
was not knowing its history.
Abazi ukuthi ubuKristu buyinkolo eyisitha somthetho kaJehova.
They do not know that the Christian religion is an enemy to God's laws.
Abazi ukuthi umsunguli noma abakhi balenkolo kaJehova yobuKristu bamchitha uJehova kanye namaJuda.
They do not know that the founders of this Christian faith destroyed the Jews and said that people must forsake Yahweh.
Kodwa angikhulumi ngalokho.
But that is not what I'm speaking about.
Ngikhuluma ngemoya eyaye ingene kubantu ibisebenzisa izinto ezimbi.
I'm speaking about spirits that dwell in people and make them do evil deeds.
Ngikhuluma ngesizwe sabaZulu.
I'm speaking about the nation of the Zulu people.
Isizwe sabaZulu sinomgubho obizwa kuthiwa umkhosi kaShaka.
The Zulu nation has a celebration which is called the commemoration of Shaka.
Ngicabanga ukuthi kuna wonke amakhosi akwaZulu kwakhethwa uShaka ngoba uShaka aziwa ngokuthi umbumbi wesizwe sakwaZulu.
I assume that they are amongst all the kings of the Zulu people. They chose Shaka Zulu because they know that he is the one who found the Zulu nation.
Kodwa ubaba ilanga wakwakhuluma into ebuhlungu ngalomkhosi kaShaka.
But Shembe II once spoke something terrible about this commemoration of Shaka.
Uthi ubaba ilanga ngithole isimemo sokuthi angiye kumkhosi kaShaka.
He said, I have received an invitation to go to this commemoration.
Wayesethi kunento oyaye ungazi ukuthi uzoyichazela kanjani abantu.
And he said there is always something that you never know how to explain to people.
Ngoba ungachaza kusuka ekuseni kuze kuyoshona ilanga bengabuzi ukuthi uthini.
Because you'd explain it from the morning to the dawn and to the evening, and they would not be aware of what you're saying.
uthi-ke ubaba ukuba kuyangami abantu bakwaZulu esikhundleni sokuthi benze umkhosi kaShaka ngabe bayamfuna uShaka ukuthi uthi.
If it was according to my will, the Zulu people would trouble themselves and look and find where Shaka is instead of commemorating him.
Ngoba abanaso isiqiniso ukuthi lento abayenzayo iyona into uShaka lapha khona oyifunayo.
Because they do not have the entire truth of knowing that wherever Shaka is, that is what he wishes to be done.
Ngoba uShaka noma engadunyiswa kanjani kodwa wayeyinkosi enonya.
Because however he might be praised, Shaka Zulu was a king that was harsh.
Wabulala abantu nezizwe eziningi.
He killed many people and nations.
Wabulala ngisho abantu baseKhabonini.
He even killed people from his mother's side.
Ngakho ke uShembe wabhala phansi ukuthi sithwele izono zabo.
Therefore Shembe wrote it down that upon us is their transgressions.
Ngenkathi uShembe efika la amaNazaretha wawatshela ukuthi angawaphatha amahawu amakhulu ezimbi kodwa ephathe amahawu amancane okusinela uJehova.
When Shembe came, he said that people should not carry the huge shields which were used during the times of wars, but they should carry smaller shields which must be used to praise Yahweh.
Wathi bengawahlabeleli amaculo ezimpi kodwa behlabelele amaculo okudumisa uJehova.
And he said that they must not sing the songs of war, but sing the songs which worship Yahweh.
Waze waqamba isihlabelelo wathi livulwe ngubani leli sango wemkhululi lalivaliwe.
And he came or created a song which says, "Who has opened this gate, O Redeemer, which was closed?"
Leli iculo namanye uShembe wawabekela ukuthi sisine ngawo sisinele uJehova.
This hymn was set aside amongst others that we dance using it, worshipping Yahweh.
Silandele irhythm yamaZulu kodwa ukuhlabelela kwethu nokusina kwethu kube ukusinela uJehova.
That we follow the rhythm of the Zulus, but our singing and dancing is a singing and dancing that worships Yahweh.
Ukuze umhlaba noma labo abangasekho bazi ukuthi asisekho empini kodwa sesisekuthuleni.
So that those our ancestors who have passed away are aware that we are no longer in war, but we are in peace.
Njengoba ngishilo ngithi inkosi uShaka yasakha isizwe sakwaZulu kodwa yayinezandla eziyigazi ezinegazi. Inkosi uDavidi yayikholiwe kodwa uNkulunkulu wayinqabela ukuthi yakhe indlu yakhe ngoba ethi inezandla ezinegazi.
As I said, that Shaka Zulu is the one who found the Zulu nation, but his hands were full of blood, just like how the case was for King David, and that is why Yahweh forbade him to build him a temple.
Wathi wena ngoba wawuhamba izimpi awukwazi ukuthi wakhe indlu yami. Wayesethi ke indlu yami siyokwakhiwa umntanakho uSolomon.
And he said that because you were engaged in wars, you cannot build me a temple, but it is your son Solomon who will do that task.
Ngakho ke noma kodwa ubhekeke ukuthi ungabanazo izandla eziyigazi uNkulunkulu.
Therefore, even if you are a king, you are expected not to have hands that are full of blood before the Lord.
Ingonyama iphethe isizwe samaZulu.
The king of is the chief over the Zulu nation,
Kanye namakhosi amaningi angaphansi kwabo.
and other chiefs that are.
Njengoba ngishilo ingonyama iyazi ukuthi siyisizwe esingaphansi kwesizwe sakwa-Israel.
As I said, the king is aware that we are a people that belong to the children of Israel.
Kwa-Israel inkosi yaye ilalela kubaprofethi ukuthi kufanele ihambe kanjani.
In Israel, the king would listen to the prophet as to how he should proceed on doing things.
uNkulunkulu wayethume uShembe kumakhosi akwaZulu ukuthi ebavuselele umthetho nenqubo kaNkulunkulu njengoba yayinjalo kumakhosi akudala.
God sent Shembe so that he would revive the Zulu kings how to observe God's laws just as it was observed during the times of David.
Ngiyafisa ukusho ukuthi inkosi noma ingonyama inawo amandla okuba inqobe lokubulalana kwamaZulu.
I want to state that the king has the power to conquer these killings that are going on amongst the Zulu people.
Kodwa ukuze ibe nawo amandla kufanele ifunde ukuthi uNkulunkulu ukhonzwa kanjani njengoba wayekhonzwa amakhosi akudala oDavid.
But for him to have that power, he must learn how God is worshipped, just like the King David worshipped God.
Uma inkosi ikholiwe ngokuphelele ilandela uNkulunkulu, inamandla ukucela noma yini kuNkulunkulu eyenzele yona.
If the king is faithful and observes God's laws, he has the power to ask anything from God, and God will do that for him.
Ngake ngezwa inkosi uSimakade eshumayela. uSimakade Mchunu.
I once heard the chief Smagate Mchunu preaching.
Uthi uSimakade Mchunu ezweni lami kwakuhlale kulwa izigodi.
He said that in his land there would be occasional wars amongst the different districts.
Uthi ngazama ngehluleka ukuba ngivimbe lokhu kulwa kwezigodi.
And he said he tried with failure to cease these wars.
Ithike inkosi uSimakade ngabe sengibiza sonke isizwe sami.
And he said that I then called all my people.
Ngase ngithi ngithole inyanga enkulu ezokwazi ukuqeda lezimpi. Ngakho ke umuzi nomuzi angisaze noma wathi umuntu nomuntu akakhokhe utiki noma uzuba ewulethe enkosini.
He told his nation that he had found a great healer, so therefore each and every household should pay 5 cents to the king.
Ithike inkosi nangempela isizwe sayikhipha le mali.
And he said that the people did that indeed.
Uthike ngase ngiyawuthatha lo mnikelo nguyisa kubaba ilanga ekuphakameni.
And he said he then took this offering to Shembe II at Ekpagameni.
Uthi ngafike ngaguqa ngithe ngisamchazela nje ukuthi lo mnikelo uqondene nani, wayesethi ubaba ilanga angimlandele beye endlini ebizwa kuthiwa igumbi.
And when I took out that offering, just as I was explaining what it was for, he was instructed by Shembe II to follow him to a particular house that is known as Igumbi.
igumbi indawo yokuthandaza nendawo lapha engathi iladi oyiladi ehlala khona.
That house is known as a house where the prayers are said, and that is where the offerings are kept.
I-altar.
It's an altar.
Ithi-ke inkosi umchunu wathi mayefika lapha egunjini ubaba wafika waguqa wayesethi akaguqe eduze kwakhe.
And when they arrived before that altar, the Shemba II knelt down and he instructed the king to do the same.
Uthi-ke ubaba wayeseyakhuluma ebhekisa uNkulunkulu ebika konke inkosi eze ngakho.
And then Shemba II prayed before God and said or narrated what the king was there for.
Nomnikelo wawushiya lapho.
And he left that offering there.
Ithi-ke inkosi uSimakade usukela ngaleso sikhathi kwaphela nya ukuba kube nezimpi ezweni lakhe.
And the chief Smaragde said that from that time there were no more wars in his land.
Wathi wayebuke nje amakhosi awungamakhelwane benezimpi kwenze njani kodwa kuzange kwaphinde kwenzeka ezweni lakhe.
And he said he would just watch other neighboring chiefs engaged in wars, but there were no more wars in his land.
Lokhu kusifundisa ukuthi uNkulunkulu wezwa umthandazo wenkosi ukuvikela isizwe sakhe.
That teaches us that the Lord heard the prayer of the king, that he protects his nation.
Inkosi uSimakade ke kwakuyinkosi eyayikholwe kakhulu kuna wonke amakhosi engangabona.
The king Smaragde was a great believer, more than any other kings I had came across.
Ebandleni lamaNazaretha uma sisemhlanganweni ngo-12 siye enkonzweni ebasethempelini ngo-12 ebusuku.
In the Nazareth faith, when we have our holy gatherings, we usually have a prayer at 12 in the noon.
Wawuthi ngo-12 uya enkonzweni uyayibona inkosi uSimakade naye iphethe ithoshi ihamba nawe iya kuleyo nkonzo.
And by the time you were journeying to that prayer, you would also see the chief Smaragde engaging in that prayer.
Ekuseni siyafike sithandaze endlini bese siya ethempelini siyothandaza ngo-4.
In the morning at 4 a.m. we pray in our shelters or houses, and then we also go on to pray in the temple.
Uthi ekuseni uyoguqa uthandazo uyayibona inkosi uSimakade nayo ikanye nawo izothandaza.
And you'd see the king amongst you praying as well.
Bese uyamangala ukuthi ngoba lo muntu uyinkosi futhi mdala kangaka kwenzeka kanjani ukuthi ehambe umthandazo ka-12 ebusuku nomthandazo ka-4 ekuseni.
And you'd be amazed, how is it that because he was a king and he was in old age, that he is always with us during the prayer at 12 and 4 in the morning.
Nasemgidini noma esekhulile uyayibona inkosi uSimakade isemgidini iyosingela uJehova.
Even when he had grew old, you would see him in the holy dance, dancing for Yahweh.
Ngakho-ke akumangalisi ukuthi yathi mangabe ikhipha umnikelo icela uNkulunkulu ukuthi esizweni sayo uphele ukulwa kwenzeke lokho.
So it comes as no surprise that when he went before God asking that the wars cease in his nation, and that came to manifest.
Ukukholwa kwenkosi kuyisibusiso esisimangalise esizweni sayo ngoba siyasinda ngayo ngoba isuke ilokhuza kuyiyona ephethe isizwe noma elikhanda lesizwe.
When a king is a believer of and faithful to God, that is miraculous upon his nation, because the nation is saved as he is the head of the nation.
Inkosi uSimakade yayinjalo.
And that is how the King Smaragde was like.
Ngelinye ilanga ingilosi yake yaveza umuzi wenkosi uSimakade noma indlu yenkosi uSimakade ezulwini inkosi isaphila.
One day the angel showed us the house that would be given to King Smaragde whilst he was still alive.
Angazi noma yayisegula yini kodwa yayiphila.
I do not know whether he was sick, but he was still alive.
Yasho ingilosi yathi indlu yenkosi uSimakade le izothi mayihamba la emhlabeni iyongena lapha kwona.
And he said that that is the house of King Smaragde, and when he passed on, that is where he'd live.
Yathi ingilosi inkosi ekhulile ubukhosi bayo abupheli la emhlabeni noma isihambile ifike ibe inkosi nasezulwini.
And he said that if a king is faithful to God, that kingship does not end in this world, but it goes on even when he's in heaven.
Sidinga amakhosi anjalo ke.
We need such kings.
Amakhosi asaba uNkulunkulu.
Kings that fear God.
Amakhosi akwazi ukukhulumela isizwe sayo kuNkulunkulu.
Kings that are able to intercede on behalf of their nations before God.
Ngoba uma inkosi ingaxhumene noNkulunkulu, inkinga yesizwe sayo ngeke ikwazi ukuyixazulula.
Because if a king does not have a relationship with God, he will not be able to solve the problems of his people.
Kuyisicelo sami kumakhosi onke kuhlanganisa neNgonyama ukuthi eke bebheke ukuthi isizwe sakwa-Israel sasiphuma kanjani ezinkingeni zaso.
It is my plea to all chiefs and the Zulu king to check how or research how whenever the children of Israel had problems, how they dealt with those problems.
Bebheke ukuthi uShembe ingempela wayelethwe lapha emhlabeni endlunkulu nakumakhosi ukuthi ezokwenzani.
They must look carefully what Shemba was sent for amongst in the royal family and amongst all the other chiefs.
Ufanele sibe isizwe esifana nesizwe sakwa-Israel ngoba siyisizwe siphethwe uNkulunkulu. Esithi masineyinkinga sikwazi ukuthi sihlangane njengesizwe sibikele uNkulunkulu inkinga esinayo.
We must be a nation exactly like the children of Israel, that whenever we have problems or are faced with difficulties, we come together and report that to God.
Senze njengoba kwenza uNehemiya kuNehemiya 9.
And do as Nehemiah did in the book of Nehemiah 9.
Ukuba bengiyinkosi ngiphethe isizwe, bengingeke ngivume ukuthi kuye saqhutshekwa nomkhosi kaShaka.
If I was the king leading the nation, I would not allow the continuation of the commemoration of Shaka.
Kodwa esikhundleni ngangokwenza umkhosi kaShaka ube usuku lesilindlu.
Instead, I would have made that day to be a day of lamentation.
Lapho ngihlangana nesizwe sililele isizwe ngento eyenzekayo phakathi kwethu.
Where I would come together with my people and lament on behalf of the nation about the things that have transpired amongst us.
Ngangiyothatha lokhu ukudumisa uNkulunkulu okwafundiswa umprofeti uIsaiah Shembe owayethunywe uNkulunkulu kulesizwe sakwaZulu.
I would take on the worship that was taught to the nation of KwaZulu by the prophet Isaiah Shembe.
Ngifune amaNazaretha ukuthi evunule ebese eya ethuneni lakaShaka eyosina esinele uJehova phambi kwenkosi uShaka.
And take the Nazarites to the grave of Shaka Zulu, and they dance before the King Shaga's.
Bese njengenkosi ngikhuluma noJehova ngoShaka ngichazela ukuthi inkosi lesi sizwe sakhiwa ngokhokho bethu basakha ngegazi.
And I would then go before the Lord and say before the Lord that this nation of ours was created or was found by our forefathers, and it was built upon the blood of people.
Bese ngiyibala izono ezenziwa inkosi uShaka nezenziwa ngoDingana nezenziwa ngoCetshwayo zokubulala ngoba ziyaziwa.
And I would go on to count the sins of killing that were done by King Shaga, King Cetshwayo, as they are known.
Bese ngicela kuNkulunkulu ukuthi ngicela ukuthi inkosi lapha bakhona ubaxolele izono zabo.
And then I would plead before God that He forgives them of their sins.
Bese ngicelela isizwe sami ukuthi ngicela ukuthi lokhu kubulala osekuphumele esizweni sami kuphele.
And then ask on behalf of my nation that these killings which are amongst us be ceased.
Isizwe esingasekho sazi ukuthi asisekho empini njengoba babeyiphila bona.
So that our ancestors know that we are no longer engaged in wars just like they were engaged in wars.
Bese ngicela uNkulunkulu ukuthi ngicela ukuthi etshele amakhosi akwaZulu nesizwe sakwaZulu abafa belwa ukuthi izikhali abaziyeke ngoba isikhathi seyikhali sokulwa sesiphelile kakhulukazi ngoba babelwa bodwa.
And then I would ask God to instruct them to put aside their shields and tell them that the times of wars are no more, as they were fighting amongst themselves.
Bese ngicela uNkulunkulu ukuthi isizwe sakithi namakhosi akithi akabuke amanazareth ukuthi uNkulunkulu udunyiswa kanjani.
And I would plead that they look at the Nazarites and see how God is worshipped.
Lokho kwenza kwakuzokwenza ukuthi wonke abantu bakwaZulu abafa besempini bebeke phansi ikhali bese bethatha ukudumisa uNkulunkulu njengoba umprofeti Isaiah ukuthula kube kuye ekufundisile.
Such doing would have made all our ancestors to put aside their weapons and then take on worshipping God as the Nazarites are doing, as they have been taught by Prophet Isaiah, peace be upon him.
Ngineqiniso ukuthi uma kwangavela inkosi enesibindi njengoDavid eyazi indaba kaNkulunkulu iyenze lento lokhu kubulalana kwesizwe sakwaZulu kwakuyophela.
I am assured that if there were to appear a king such as David, these killings of today's topic is the issue of customs which have fatal outcomes.
Ngoba ukuthi siyembusweni emkhosini kaShaka sivunule sihuba amahubo ezimpi usingo lwethu.
Because to go to the commemoration of Shaga's Day and to go to the commemoration of Shaga's Day and sing our traditional songs is our custom.
Kodwa usiko onomphumela wokufa.
But it is a custom that has a fatal outcome.
Ngoba laba bantu ngenkathi nihuba amahubo niphethe izizenze bazi ukuthi impi emhlabeni isekhona.
Because when these spirits see us carrying weapons and singing these songs, they think that there are wars that are still going on.
Ngenkathi bazi ukuthi impi isekhona ngoba batshelwe yini ngenkathi nizogubha umkhosi ukuthi impi isekhona ngoba nenza njengoba babenza.
And they know that because you are doing just like they did, and by doing so you are telling them that the war is continuing.
Bese ke lempi yabo iphuma ingena kithi bese nathi ke siqala sibulalana.
Then
Owukufa.
now doing such a commemoration is a custom that has a fatal outcome.
Ngakho ke ukushintsha usiko onomphumela okufa kudinga inkosi enesibindi nenkosi ekholwe eyazi kahle indaba kaNkulunkulu.
So to change these customs which have fatal outcomes needs a king that is brave and who understands the laws of God.
Ekwaziyo ukuchazela isizwe sayo ukuthi lokhu ngikwenzelani kuzomsizaphi.
Who will be able to explain to his people why he is doing such and how it will be of help to the people.
Ekwaziyo ukukhetha phakathi kosiko olunomphumelo obulalayo nokuba ufundisa abantu ukwenza umthetho kaNkulunkulu onomphumela ophilisayo.
One who is able to choose wisely between customs that have fatal outcomes and customs of God which have good outcomes.
Amakhosi akwaZulu adinga ukuthi eyicabange lento engiyikhulumayo.
The Zulu kings need to think carefully about what I'm saying,
Ngoba lezi zimpi zikhona kuwo wonke amakhosi.
because these wars are found amongst all these kings.
Maningi amakhosi angamaNazaretha.
There are many kings which are Nazarites,
Kodwa ngiyangabaza ukuthi ayaqonda ukuthi inhloso yomprofeti kwakuyini.
but I doubt if they know the intention of the prophet.
Ngoba umprofeti usho kahle ukuthi ngithunyelwe esizweni esonile.
Because the prophet has clearly stated that he is sent to a nation that has sinned.
Lesi sizwe sonile okuyisizwe sikaNkulunkulu ngoba siyisizwe sikaNkulunkulu.
This nation which has sinned is a nation of God.
Babone kahle umprofeti esephuca yamahawa amakhulu esinikeza amahawa amancane.
They have seen the prophet taking away from us the big shields and giving us the smaller shields.
Bambone kahle umprofeti esenqabela kuba sihlabelele amahubo ezimpi kodwa sihlabelele amahubo kaJehova.
They have seen the prophet saying that we must stop singing the war songs, but sing songs that worship Yahweh.
Okuseqinisweni noma ngingasazi noma amaNazaretha akwazi lokho. Thina amaNazaretha asigiyi.
In truth, we Nazarites do not perform the traditional dance.
The gear dance.
The
Because
gear
the
dance.
traditional dance is not what we everything is a traditional dance.
The,
Say the gear
the
dance.
gear dance. The war dances.
Yeah, the what dance. Uma thina amaNazaretha ukugiya sigiya siyaye sigiye ngesigeke esikhuluma ngoJehova.
If we, the Nazarites, dance before God, we dance and sing songs that worship Yahweh.
Thina amaNazaretha okuseqinisweni asinazo izibongo.
In fact, we do not have praise songs.
Uma ubona umuntu oyiNazaretha enezibongo egiya eshaya ihawu lokusinela uJehova ngenduku noma ngewisa akayazi indaba kaNkulunkulu.
If you see a Nazarite self-praising themselves and beating on their shields, they do not know the laws of God.
Uma ufuna ukugiya noma kumshado ubohlabelela isigeke bese usina wedwa lapha ikhona kugiya kwethu wena.
Even if it is a wedding and you want to dance, you must sing on the Nazarite songs, and that is what is ours.
uNkulunkulu unesikhwele ukushilo lokho ukuthi unesikhwele akafuni ukuthi kwenziwe into ephambana nale osifundiseyo.
God is a jealous God, and He has told us that and He does not want us to do anything against what He has taught us.
Njalo ngamasabatha noma sekwakhishwa kulezi ncwadi siyafunda ukuthi sithwele izono zamakhosi ethu.
Every Shabbat we read that we are burdened by the sins of our forefathers.
So sinesikwenetu njengoba kwakwenza oNehemiya, so kuya kuNkulunkulu siyocela kuba izono zokhokho bethu zingasilandeli.
So it is upon us to forever plead before God, just like Nehemiah did, that the sins of our forefathers be not upon us.
Ngoba uma ukhokho wakho wenza isono esithize wangaxolelwa, leso sono siba umkhokha bese senziwa yibo bonke abantu bakulowo muzi.
Because if your forefather did a sin and he was not forgiven for that, that sin continues and it becomes a bad or has fatal outcomes in that household.
Kanjalo uma ngabe inkosi eniphethe yenza isono noma sokubulala, leyo nto yangalungiswa nonke nohlala nibulalana.
Likewise, if a king that led you has had a sin and has not been forgiven for that, you will continue doing the same sin.
Ngakho ke nithi uma ngabe abantu bakwaZulu belandela lolu siko balandela usiko olunomphumela wokufa.
So therefore I'm saying to the Zulu people that if they continue observing such customs, they are following customs that have fatal outcomes.
Kungaba into enhle kubantu bakwaZulu ukuthi bezwe amabutho ehaya, kodwa lokho kuhaya kwamabutho kudala ukufa.
It might be good to the Zulu people when they see people of the Zulu nation singing war songs, but such doings have fatal outcomes.
Ngakho ke amakhosi akwaZulu nabantu bakwaZulu abachuze phakathi kokuthi belandele amasiko azogcina eletha ukufa noma bewayeke lawo masiko belandele indlela kaJehova ezogcina ibalethela ukuphila.
So the Zulu kings and their people must choose whether they want to keep on observing these customs which are fatal to them, or they want to observe the ways of God which will bring them life.
Bosi, 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 Asibheke enkosini. uNkulunkulu wasephakameni, uNkulunkulu kaShem. Ngibeka Nkosi abantwana bakho abaphambi kwakho nabangekho la abalalele le nkonzo ukuba ubakhumbule ubeyazi Nkosi ukuthi basenkonzweni yakho, ubhale Nkosi amagama abo encwadini yokuphila. Ngibeka Nkosi isizwe sakwaZulu, isizwe esithanda ukubulalana, esikwenza ukubulalana kube yinto eyusiko lwabo. Ngibeka Nkosi laba bantu ababi abadlwengula abantu besifazane bebabulala. Ngicela ukuthi omama bethu nabantwana bethu bavikele kulaba bantu ababi kanje. Uqede Nkosi lobu bubo obuqhambe emhlabeni, kakhulukazi lapha kwaZulu, lapha abantu khona bekuthatha njengento enhle ukubulalana. Uqede Nkosi izimpi ezisemakhaya, uqede Nkosi izimpi ezisematekisini. Njengoba sekuzoshaya uDisemba Nkosi, abantu sebezofa. Njengoba sekuzoshaya uDisemba Nkosi, abantu bazolala emahlathini bengalali endlini yabo, bebulawela into engekho. Ngicela Nkosi ukuthi lo moya Nkosi owasuka kokhokho bethu unqobe Nkosi, ungabanawo amandla phezu kwethu. Le mimoya Nkosi iye lapho okufanele iye khona, kodwa ingabuyi izohlala kubantu. Ngiyakucela konke lokho Nkosi ngelakho igama manje ephakade. Amen.